Clive, welcome to the Medium podcast.
No, thanks for inviting me.
How's the week been treating you?
Yeah, pretty busy actually. Pretty busy. I knew I was on today. I didn't dress up for you quite. I was,
It's okay.
yeah, I've just come from an interview a couple hours ago. So
Nice. How'd you go?
yeah,
How was it?
uh, yeah, it was all right. Yeah, first time I put on a tie in a little while. Um, but yeah, it was good. It was good. The
Positive.
second interview. So I knew one of the people a little bit more. So it's
Brilliant.
quite relaxed. So
Easy.
yeah, I don't know yet how it went. So I'll get feedback a little bit later on.
Because, when we previously spoke about it, the whole work thing and obviously being made redundant, it's sort of, brought a bit more of a interest in terms of, work being shaping identity. Is that correct in your life or?
Yeah. So I guess just to recap, I got made redundant a couple of months ago now.
Mm,
Finished up maybe 6 weeks ago. Did the usual refreshing holiday overseas for a couple of weeks, which is challenging actually. We'll talk about that a bit later.
mm,
But yeah, I've been on the job hunt since then, and really, yeah, got me thinking sort of in the downtime about how much work and what you do for work shapes your identity. I mean, you can't have a conversation with anyone, especially someone you've just met,
mm.
without them asking you within the first couple of questions,
What do you do?
what do you do for work? Yeah, and it's when you're unemployed, it's kind of like, yeah, I used to do this, or
Yeah.
I'm looking to do this. So
Yeah.
it's quite a interesting change because my routines completely changed from waking up in the morning and thinking about work and logging on
Yeah.
and if I'm going into the office, it was like getting
You're
ready,
on.
getting everyone out. Yeah, so it's a completely different lifestyle at the moment,
Mm.
and probably been a bit busier than I expected actually.
Oh wow. How so?
I think when you go work, you've got 8 to 10 hours of your day basically blocked out.
Mm.
I know you got lunch breaks and coffee breaks and so on. And when you're working from home, those lunch breaks can be extended a little bit.
Mm.
But yeah, that 8 to 10 hours in a day, you tend to block out to not do anything else. So something around the house that needs doing, laundry, dry cleaning, all these errands that maybe take a little bit longer than a lunchtime can allow you to.
Mm.
You basically don't think about them at all.
No, you don't.
Yeah. Whereas when you've got that 8 to 10 hours back, your day really starts to fill up really quickly.
It does.
Yeah, and yeah, we've recently purchased a house, so it's one of the older Federation style type houses. So there's a lot of renovation work and a lot of small jobs that
Mm.
need to be done. And yeah, I've been learning how to do those on YouTube and
No.
having a crack. And it's
Why are you looking for another job? Start your own construction renovation company.
well, at the moment, it's unpaid volunteer work, and I can't vouch for the quality of some of the work that I've done. So
As long as you're trying it, right?
as long as I'm trying it. So yeah, it's been very, very interesting as a thought thought experiment, really, in terms of how much your identity is shaped by work. I mean, obviously there's a lot of other aspects of people's identities,
Yeah.
but yeah, work is a pretty big one.
Interesting because
Yeah,
you and I, Clive, we basically our wives are friends,
yeah,
and that's how we met.
mhm,
And I always saw you someone as someone who was very mathematically adept, so to speak. You have a CFA.
yeah.
Did you find that using your hands and not having that structured day, did that feel very different and in a way very positive because you were doing something else?
Completely. It's yeah. My previous roles, previous work was in investment strategy.
Mm,
That's what I used to do. So yeah, none of that involves any practical work. I mean, unless you call, working a
Follow
keyboard.
construction.
Well, yeah, constructing a model using, Excel. So I know my way around a keyboard, know my way around Excel and so on. But in terms of any practical physical work, there's none at all involved in any of that. So it's a completely different skill set that I'm working on developing. I wouldn't say I was completely useless at doing work around the house, but I tend to look at cost benefit analysis as I tend to be an
Very
analytical
rational.
person. And I'll say, well, it'll probably take me 2 hours to learn how to do that, another 2 hours to do it, and probably cost me $50, $100 in materials. I might as well pay someone $300 to do that.
Makes sense. And if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to enjoy it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So I've been doing a lot more of those jobs that take a couple hours, and it's been interesting because it really engages your mind more than you think, actually. So
I love it. To
yeah,
me, I like using my hands as a break
yeah,
from talking to people, being in a team, because when I'm fixing something and building something, I'm in the moment.
yeah,
And it's
exactly.
and it exercises my mind in a different way.
Yeah,
Maybe it goes back to the whole sort of, caveman sort of prehistoric days where you're just using your hands, and I find it quite enjoyable.
yeah. It does make you feel a little bit more self-sufficient because we're so used to the conveniences of there's always someone ready to provide a service for whatever you need, even if it's replacing a light bulb. You can get someone from to come in and replace a light bulb.
Good.
Obviously,
Airtasker.
Tasker, exactly. There's people who do really small jobs to really big ones, like if you want to replace your roof and that sort of thing. But there's a point where some of it's really worth your time investing in the knowledge to try and do something around the house. Or yeah, do something with your hands, whether it's develop a craft or something like that.
Interesting. So 6 weeks break isn't that long, so to speak, yeah?
It's not long at all. So I was
Yeah.
at this company for basically 12 years. So, I mean, I'd taken holidays and I'd taken parental leave a couple of times. So it's not like I worked for 12 years without a break, but it's very, very refreshing to literally just clear my mind, clear the inbox of any sort of worries about what's going on with work while you're away. And like I said, it completely changed my routine. I used to wake up in the morning, or sometimes even in the middle of the night. I've 2 very young kids, and anyone who's got young kids knows that being woken up in the middle of the night is a fairly common occurrence. And in the last couple of years, we've had some very interesting times in financial markets. So there was always that curiosity about what was going on overseas and overnight. So I might be up at 3 a.m. with one of the kids, and as they fall asleep, I'm like, oh, let me just check what's happening.
Wow.
And it was sort of part of my routine that I wake up in the morning and just check what's happening in markets every day. Now I don't need to do that, and it's a completely different way of thinking. And started most mornings with a morning meeting, discuss what happened overnight in markets and so on, and just always was wired to be on the go.
You're on alert in a way.
Yeah, on alert, and you're always sort of up to date with current affairs, the news, everything that's happening. So it's nice to just be able to disconnect a little bit from the noise, and really think more sort of long term. Yeah, develop other hobbies, and enjoy other things.
Interesting. When we spoke last time, the redundancies still seem quite raw, I think. But
Yeah.
now it seems you really turned it into a bit of a positive, maybe, or does the feeling of being made redundant still linger in a way?
I'd say it's now sort of 99% positive.
Brilliant.
Obviously, not knowing up until that moment that this was going to happen, it's obviously a bit of a shock when you get told. And yeah, you have to go through the whole process in terms of, accepting what's happened, reflecting on, the time you've had, reflecting on all the friendships and connections that you've made, and realizing that, a lot of the things that you did, like I just, talked about in terms of my routine, are not going to be part of your life going forward. And I've got a positive outlook anyway. So throughout the process, I'd say I was always leaning more optimistically in terms of, this is a good thing, this is a good thing.
Right.
And over the last few weeks, it's been reinforced more, both through, me going through that whole process, and through, the support networks that I have, whether it's friends and professional connections that I've made, and, people I've been meeting and talking to about my next opportunities. It's that constant theme about, if you look at it as a positive, it will be a positive. And it's an opportunity to reset and really think about, what you want to do in the future. And it's, in a way, it's almost a privilege that, you don't realize it, that you have that, but it is, a privilege that I have to be able to, sit back, take my time about what my next opportunity is, spend more time with my family, spend more time, working on the house, and
Spend more time on yourself.
yeah, spend more time on myself. So these opportunities are quite rare nowadays in this, everything's go, go, go all the time. So it's nice to take a step back.
Nice. And going forward, would you want to be defined by your work, or are you looking to create a new identity that's more reflective of you?
I wouldn't say I want to create a new identity. I think I just hadn't taken the time to think about it in such a, I guess, analytical way.
Analytical way. Wow. Even
yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, you really break down all the aspects of, your identity. And for me, it's a bit like the layers of an onion. All of them are kind of the same in a way, but the closer you get to the heart, in terms of the closer you get to your true individual self, that's where you really see your identity. So there's different layers. You can go as wide as
That's
you
so
want to.
deep. I like it.
I wouldn't say it's that deep, but it's fairly obvious when when I elaborate on it a little bit, in terms of, people derive their identity from a number of different things, and it can be from, something like your nationality, your race, the language you speak, all the way down to, the schools you went to, the places you hang out, the music you like, and then even closer in terms of your own family values, and the friends that you have. And then there's also the inner self, the things that motivate you as a person, your fears, your hopes, your dreams, those kinds of things that define you individually. But all those different layers, like concentric circles, like they're all part of you. But we pick and choose really which ones we attach ourselves to more. So you see it pretty much everywhere. People not just don't necessarily think about it, but all those are layers of who we are, and everyone's a really complex person when you really break it down. Like when you really spend time talking to people as individuals, like all the experiences we've had are part of who we are. So
very
you
well
really
said.
think about it. Yeah.
And what's interesting is that perhaps if you weren't made redundant, you wouldn't have thought about this in a way, would you? Or like it seems quite a bit of an epiphany in a way.
I'd say a lot of it has happened in probably the last 6 months. So before the redundancy even. So COVID was a big change to to our lives really, and to our routines.
Monumental shift.
It was a big shift. It was everybody went through the same thing. Unfortunately, a lot of people, had health problems, died, and a lot of people lost their jobs. But it forced everyone to change something about their lives. And I think through that, I basically started thinking about a lot of things. Was this what I wanted to continue doing? And it was amazing how adaptable a lot of people are. Actually, I was surprised we coped that well overall. So it was when I really started thinking about it, and I guess I've had more time now to really think about it and articulate it. And like I said, I've got a part now that's gone that I can now really think about why was it such a big part of of how I identify myself.
So what's interesting is that in the past couple of years with COVID, were you always thinking about perhaps making a change and not creating a new identity, like you said, but perhaps taking it to another level because you felt, I want to say stuck. I know we had prior conversations before about your role. Maybe the redundancy wasn't as a surprise, perhaps, or
yeah, when I think about it, it wasn't a surprise. The timing might have been a surprise, but it wasn't really in terms of things that have been going in that direction for a little while. And in terms of the career progression that I was after was different to what the direction that the team and the company was going in. So those things were obvious, and it was just about what was going to be done about it.
interesting.
And I could feel that. So I had thoughts about moving, so interviewing somewhere else and so on. But when you're in a job that's pretty comfortable, you like the people that you work with, it's you don't dedicate as much time and effort to going elsewhere.
It's
So
comfortable.
It's comfortable. It's comfortable. I wouldn't say I was happy, but I was comfortable. So that has forced me to go out there and actually do something about that part of my career. But also on the side, I've been, exploring other avenues. Whether it was starting a business, or volunteering or helping people with their businesses. So I've been doing little bits on the side, and I've been, working on a business with a friend.
Nice.
So I'm basically volunteering my time to help out with this business, but it's an idea that I really connect with, and it's helped me explore and develop a skill set that I didn't know I had really. So
I love that
yeah,
nice smile when you talked about it.
yeah, it's allowing me to think more creatively.
Lovely.
I think out
Brilliant.
of the box. Yeah.
And because you and I know that not every experience has that silver lining at times, doesn't it?
Yes. Yes. I think experiences are definitely both positive and negative. And I think you just kind of have to process it and try and take positives out of as many situations as you can, but that's not always possible. But
During that 6-week period, did you feel uncomfortable talking to, how you mentioned before that basically whenever two new people meet, inevitably the question comes out, so what do you do?
I think it's actually helped in a lot of ways, because it's provided a point of difference and a point of interest that's made a conversation like that more meaningful and more memorable. Because I think how many times you talk to someone and they say, oh, I work in real estate or whatever, and then you just continue the path. You ask the next question: do you have any kids? Are you married? That kind of thing. Like, Whereas when you say something that's unexpected as a response, you pause and you reflect and you discuss that topic. So, I've had everything from, people really taking a deep interest in terms of, oh, they made you redundant. Oh, that sounds so terrible. Why? Well, how does that work? And so on. And especially people who don't work in, I guess, the finance industry. It probably works quite differently in other industries, as I've found out now. So the process is quite different. So for me, it was a very, I guess, amicable, if you can call a situation like that. It was like an amicable divorce. So it's explaining that to people, and then talking about the process and the things that I've gone through was very, very good for me, because it normalized it a lot. And
you didn't keep it in.
No, I didn't keep it in. Discussed all sorts of angles. Like I said, a lot of people was one from shock, and other people were like, "Oh, that's a really good thing. I know it happened to someone, or it's happened to me before." And people share bits of themselves that are helpful, and all of those have helped make it like a very normal thing, rather than me sitting at home and avoiding talking to people and not having some of those questions that I haven't asked myself. How did I feel about that? Do you feel like you could have done something different to keep your job? Did I want to do something different to keep my job? All those things that you might not think of asking yourself, other people ask you, and it kind of forces you to
Interesting.
to go through that.
So what was the most profound question you got when someone asked about your recent experience? Because as you could imagine, there are a lot of questions which are very run of the mill. Why did it happen? When did it happen? How could they? This is fantastic. It's very positive, right? It's just there's a spectrum, right? So was there one profound question that you received about it which really got you thinking?
Oh, that's a tough one. I wouldn't say there's been a profound question, but one person basically, I would say, psychoanalyzed me.
Psychoanalyze you. Okay, okay.
Pretty much on the spot. He's like, "Well, the way you're talking about it, it sounds like this is something you were thinking about and were prepared for, because if you're saying it happened 2 weeks ago, it was 2 weeks after the event when I was speaking to this person. Sounds like you've really processed this well. And so what are you going to do now?" And but the way he sort of summarized the feeling I had at that time was I guess pretty accurate. And this was 2 minutes into the conversation, so this is not someone I know very well. Someone I'd meet maybe once every 6 months, and so the way he just basically just said, "Hang on, I'm observing you. I'm listening to the words that you're saying, listening to how you're talking about it. It sounds like you're at peace with it."
Even 2 weeks after the event.
Yes.
Is that a testament to the fact that, like what you and I talked about, you could sort of see it coming in a way?
Yeah.
Because even for yourself, you felt you were comfortable,
Yeah.
challenged or whatnot, you could argue, but you always wanted to maybe get out. And what's interesting is that an opportunity presented itself.
Yeah.
You took it.
Yeah.
And utilizing your mind of analyzing and being that rational yourself, the pros, sorry, clearly outweighed any negative consequences.
Yeah.
Interesting. And like what we talked about, if you weren't really expecting it at all, this conversation may have gone a different path.
I think so. Because I've seen and observed other people in the team that it's happened to, and the reactions were, arranged, and some of them were a shock to me as well. So it was maybe those experiences or seeing it happen to other people in the company kind of planted the seed that that's a possibility for me as well.
Oh, you mean sort of the rumor mill in a way? Or
Not necessarily the rumor mill, but the fact that it's around the corner for a lot of people.
got it.
It's just steel yourself or prepare yourself or something like that. That
Interesting.
was even before I had my situation at work changed. So it was while things are still going well in terms of the progression that I was receiving and the direction that we were both going in was aligned.
Interesting. And getting back to that person with whom you met
Mm,
for 2 minutes, he, she psychoanalyzed you,
mm,
recognized that you felt at peace with what has
mm.
happened. So, in terms of that next step, have you defined what you want to do going forward in a very specific way? Or is it very much going, you know what, I did this before,
Mhm.
I'm going to do it again? Or I'm going to do it again, but in a different setup?
So it's a little bit of both. So the range of advice and the range of experiences that people who've had redundancies before has been quite diverse. So everything from start a business, forget finance, do something else, to take 6 months out. I know that's people say just take 6 months out. You need to refresh. You can do it, and then start looking. To basically, oh, you've got the experience. There's plenty of opportunities right now for people with exact the same experience that you have. Just go for that. And I'm probably more in the camp where I know I've got experience that might be valuable to an employer. So I'm being quite selective in terms of the next opportunity. But I think I'm very happy to go into something that can utilize the skill set that I have
Mm.
in a different way to add to that skill set. So apply what I've learned in the next challenge. So continue to build sort of my career in finance, and I now am more able to sort of develop other aspects in parallel to that. So I think my career is not ending here. It's
I wouldn't
sort
say
of
so at
it's
all.
another step.
It's another
It's
step in
another
the right
step.
direction.
Yeah. So being quite selective in terms of the environment that I want to go into. So it's been nice, and it's been very helpful being able to do that when you interview. So last time I seriously interviewed for jobs when I was looking 10 years ago or so.
Mm.
It was a very different approach. It was who who would want me. Now it's who do I want to go to.
Wow, it's a very profound shift in mindset.
Very
Does that
different
co-
shift.
does that come back to the Uranian analogy in a sense that Clive is a much more experienced or holistic person now who really knows himself better now?
I'd say it's more about understanding myself. I mean, I don't think I've changed drastically. I mean, things have been added to my identity, like getting married, becoming a parent, which I didn't have 10 years ago. But the inner self, it's basically the same person. It's just there's more, I guess, maturity of and understanding of who that person is,
Brilliant.
and actually applying that into the world. Like, how does that impact the kind of work and the kind of environment that I want to be in now that I know that I like these sort of things?
And in terms of the current skill set and moving into a new role that allows you to enhance slash expand that skill set, what is it that you really want to do?
So investment strategy is my core skill set, and I really do enjoy updating or changing an investment strategy. So going into an organization that's got a set investment strategy and maintaining that is not necessarily something I'm that keen on. I want to go on the journey of, taking an organization from where they currently are to a new place. So basically put my stamp on an organization. And I think that's very interesting work because it's really getting to understand an organization, understand their goals and their philosophy and what they how they want to achieve certain things. So and then you help them do that
When you
rather than
say,
yeah,
sorry, Clive, when you say investment strategy, do you
yeah.
mean joining an organization, for example, that wants to grow revenues by X%, therefore we need to acquire Y company, for example, to add to our revenue mix? Do you mean that in investment strategy, or is it more on the purest sense in a sense of bonds, shares, crypto, for example?
It's probably more in the second sense. So the area that I work in really works for institutions that have investment arms. So, you got your fund managers, you got your superannuation funds, you got insurance companies, you got endowment funds, family offices, wealth advisory companies. All those companies have money to invest, whether it's their own money or money from clients, money from trustees. They all need to put their money into some sort of investment that helps them, pay for the things that they need to pay for, whether it's, get their clients, a better retirement income, make sure that their endowments are able to pay, for the charity work that they do. And so each of those organizations has a philosophy about how they want to manage money, like what they think of, certain types of asset markets. Do they like, crypto investments? Do they like equities? Do they want to stay safe in bonds and that sort of thing? And from that philosophy, you come up with an investment strategy, which is really based on your philosophy that you don't want to take really high risk, and you've got these objectives and constraints that you need to adhere to. This is the sort of asset mix that we should put into your portfolio so that we get to those results with the minimal amount of risk, basically.
So it's pretty much advising these companies to help them achieve their investment objectives.
Yes.
So it's very much you being a chameleon of sorts and working out what's best for them. I suppose I'm curious, given where we are in the market,
Yeah.
everything seems to be correlated to one another, given the
Yes.
current market tumult.
Yes.
What's your sort of philosophy when it comes to investing?
It really depends on your time frame. I think most people don't think of their time frame. Most people don't think of their ultimate objectives. Well, I guess a lot of people have the ultimate objective to be rich. So maybe I should
That's my North
rephrase
Star.
it.
Doesn't matter, 5, 10, it's all about
Yeah,
rich.
exactly. Well, people want to be rich tomorrow or next year, but I think you really have to get those questions really sorted out first. So I really believe in objectives based investment and investment strategy. I know I've mentioned that I used to look at what happened in markets every day, but
Yeah, 3 o'clock in the morning.
yeah, but the way I see that, that's the market noise. That in itself is not necessarily valuable unless you are a day trader and looking to trade in and out of the market quite a lot. The value in it more so is staying current, understanding what's happening, understanding trends that might impact the long-term viability or be providing opportunities for you to get into something. So the way I really think about it is think of your ultimate objective. Think of a sensible time frame that matches up to that objective. Do you want to buy a house in a couple of years? What kind of deposit do you want to save for? How much money are you going to be putting in? What are the sort of assets that could get you to that objective? And then you start thinking about the investment strategy that you want to put in place. And once you've put it in, it's going to be a scary ride, pretty much, whatever asset class you've got. It'll be down some days, it'll be up some days. What you really need to do is try and focus on your objective and see how, if anything, has changed by the current market noise. So if the company looks like it's going broke, then yes, that's changed your long-term objective quite materially. So then you might need to do something. But if it's just, this is down a couple of percentage points because the whole market's down a couple of percentage points, then nothing's really changed.
I was going to say to you, which asset class going forward can generate the most alpha? But as we know, the market constantly in a state of flux. I read something interesting where Tiger Global, I think a large venture capital firm, basically is down about 75% in terms of its returns, which essentially means it's just wiped out, correct if I'm wrong, the vast majority of its gains for the past 10 years.
It could have. I don't know a lot about, I've heard of Tiger Global, but I don't know a lot about their holdings and how long they've held them. But if they're venture capital firm, they would have probably made a lot of money if they're in the tech space, taking something from, startup or growth phase into IPOs and listing on the market. That would have been a very, very big return. So for the early investors, they probably still up, but I don't think it matters so much when you see a 75% down from the highs. It's psychology. Someone can tell you you're up 10x, but if you're up 100x 2 weeks ago, it doesn't feel great.
Terrible feeling.
A terrible feeling. And there's theories about how well, it's not really a theory, it's been empirically tested that people feel losses like maybe twice as much as they feel celebrate gains. So you experience a loss in your portfolio and you experience a gain, people feel much worse about the loss than they feel good about the gain they've had.
So for the everyday investor, I think the recommendation, you already said it already, understand what you're hoping to achieve within a certain time frame.
So I'd say don't look at anecdotal evidence of this guy made $1 billion trading crypto. Well, this guy is a really good day trader.
He or she probably did, maybe.
They probably did. And I don't doubt, those stories of, people who've been star traders and have made, a lot of money. But just know that behind that, there's, hundreds of thousands of other people in the market trying to do things. So really just be realistic about what you want to achieve. Really think about that a lot and think about the time frames that make sense. So rather than look for the standout story, look for the average story.
Be comfortable with boring. So
be comfortable with boring, but also when you're in that space, look at how you can make incremental improvements to what you're doing.
Interesting. And so with this role that you just interviewed for, as a second interview, is it in, if you don't mind me asking, is it with a super fund or insurance? Is it a fund manager maybe, or?
Yeah, it's an insurance company.
Brilliant.
And they're looking to do an update of their investment strategy. So it's kind of right in the wheelhouse.
Yeah, seems like it's a match made in heaven in a way, yeah? Or
in a few ways in terms of, what they're looking to do. And yeah, it's going to be a hard road for them and whoever goes into that role. But I think it'll be a pretty rewarding outcome in the end.
And like you said, you're very much interested in going into another role where you can expand and enhance your skill set.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned you're doing some sort of voluntary work with a friend in terms of a business.
Yes.
Have you thought about going on a different path, or was it very much, you know what, I'm very much focused on the financial space. I see myself there in the next 10, 20 years. Have you thought about something else?
Yeah, I think it's always a possibility, and I think nowadays with technology the way it is, and with a lot of the flexibility that we have to do different things, I think I will continue to have things that I'm working on and helping out on the side, and probably take a more active role in this business. So I think that's always going to be part of it, and in a way, I'll probably do that after I'm done working in financial market.
So there's still good time left in you, so to speak. You're still a young guy. We're still young guys, so to
Oh,
speak.
not as young as I used to be, but
As long as you're
yeah,
exercising well, I think you'd be fine. Eating well, all that chestnut.
yeah. Every time I exercise, I feel very sore, and I exercise quite regularly, so I'm
Yeah.
generally always quite sore.
So, it's actually fantastic to hear the positivity come from you
Mm.
in terms of being made redundant and the onion analogy, moving forward, finding that new role. And in terms of your partner, if you don't mind me asking,
Yeah.
she's also been very supportive. I'm sure, very much so. Eh?
Yes. So she was obviously the first person I told when I got the news, and yeah, we had a discussion. I mean, it went from the bit where she was first, she was shocked and worried about my well-being, and very supportive of that. Wanting to know, if she was anything I could, if there's anything she could do for me. And then then we obviously had the practical discussion about how things would work in the meantime, after I finished up at work, and what the plan was and so on. So we had that discussion pretty early on in terms of what the initial plan was to deal with it. And I said that we just recently purchased a home, so I think that was sort of lucky timing.
I'm happy to change your light bulb if you want me to.
Yeah. Well, there might be there might be 20 or so that we actually changed quite a lot of the light bulbs in the place. But yeah, so she was very supportive, very supportive, and obviously uh, it's been it's been nice for her to have me do a bit more stuff around the house and so on. So she's just been there, been very supportive, and yeah, she got over the shock of it quite quickly. And I think she took my lead from that in terms of
Yeah, I
I
think
wasn't too worried about it. And I'd actually mentioned it to her a few months ago, as I don't know, something might happen at work, but I don't know if it's if it is going to happen, how would you feel about it? And she's like, oh, if they offer you a choice, maybe don't take it, but if it's something that's put to you, you don't necessarily have the choice. But in a way, I'd kind of prepared her for the possibility. Uh,
interesting.
and yeah, and when it happened, it was less of a shock, but it was still a shock.
And you mentioned 10 years ago you weren't married, you didn't have
Mm.
kids. How has that, how is the identity now in terms of the effect on your kids? Because I'm pretty sure if you went home after you got that news and you were in a terrible state, that's inevitably going to rub off onto your boys.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing was I was already at home, and
Sure.
my manager was based in New York, so I couldn't have met in person unless he flew here or they flew me there, which would have been an interesting exercise. Being flown there to be told that news to fly back, but
Okay, well, I might as well enjoy myself.
yeah, exactly. So it was much like this. It was a call, a video call, and yeah. And my wife was in another room, and after the call, went over and spoke to her and told her what had happened. But the kids were away. They were at daycare, so I had a few hours before they came home, and yeah, they're too young to understand or care. For them, it's everything is normal, and everything has been very normal for them. Probably a little bit more daddy time now than they had before, but I think they're both very happy with that.
And I think listening and seeing their dad now, he's taken on very well. It's good lessons here in terms of managing something that could rock a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I suppose, like what you said, you've been very fortunate that you sort of knew it was coming in a way, and perhaps you mentally prepared yourself beforehand.
Yeah, I guess it's in a way it's kind of like a stoic mindset where you do these visualizations of negative outcomes, and you think through how you deal with them, and you do that before something bad happens, and when it does happen, you kind of have a blueprint to follow. So
I
in a
suppose in
way,
these situations, the universe of outcomes is somewhat binary.
yes,
Either you get made redundant or you don't.
yes,
There could be maybe one or two where you can stay on, but maybe half the time. But
yeah,
the number of possibilities are sort of finite.
exactly. Yeah, so it's one of those things where you could easily do that at home. You can just think to yourself, well, I'm in this job. What if tomorrow the company went bankrupt and the job's gone, or something happened and they ask you to move on? Like, what would you do? How would that impact you? That's a very easy exercise to do, because it generally isn't a topic that people attach too much emotion to. But you'd be surprised once you start thinking about it how it might affect your emotional state.
Interesting. And don't mind me, I just wanted to dig a bit
Mm.
deeper. You mentioned a lot of people said to you, "Oh yeah, just take 6 months off."
Yeah,
And you mentioned to me that if an opportunity arose where you could utilize your skills again, you would take it.
yeah,
It seems very rational approach where you pretty much grabbed the next opportunity that came. I'm just sort of curious to know or understand, was there a bit of you that wanted to go, you know what, I might just not take 6 months. Maybe I'll take 3. Did it
yeah.
ever cross your mind or?
Yes, it's crossed my mind. And I'd say, in a way, I'm hoping through the process of, initially talking to someone, a job coming up, first interview, second interview, so on, and that whole process, generally takes, anywhere up to a couple of months. So I'm hoping through that,
That gives you that time, so to speak.
it gives me that time. And like I said, some of these things, they don't occupy my mind, for the whole day. So I've completely put the interview earlier today aside. I'll wait
Brilliant.
to hear back from HR when they call me, but I'm not sitting by the phone waiting to. Yeah, exactly. So I'm now focused on, I'm focused on this conversation now, and then later on, I've got the kids back from daycare, and just moving on to the other things that I want to do. And I think
You don't linger.
I'm not lingering at all, and it's not 8 to 10 hours of my day that's taken up by looking for work. It's maybe a couple of hours, 2 or 3 days a week, because I'm going into the city to catch up with people, and
You don't let it
networking.
consume you.
No, I'm not letting it consume me. And I think through that process, I think that's, for me, is a better reset than sitting in a holiday destination for 3 months and not doing anything.
So you can't be on a beach, just lying there, sipping pina coladas, despite you did go to Bali.
I did go to Bali, but even there, we stay a little bit busy. We go try out different things, and look for things to occupy the time while you're there. So I can do a couple of days lying by the pool. I can
but
do
not
that,
but not
but
free 6 months.
no, definitely not. That's not me. That's not that would not allow me to have a healthy mindset and a healthy life.
Because when you filled in the questionnaire, you actually said on the responses that there are many things going in your mind. And that's the case now. But like you said, although there are many things you think about, you give them their time.
Yeah, exactly.
And because that's how you approach life.
Yeah, that's how I approach life. How I think of things. It's just, I'm a very curious person. I'm a very curious mindset, which I guess helps being an analytical person as well. So I tried, spend some time, topics that really interest me, topics that might not necessarily interest me a lot, but I'll just be like, I'll spend 10 minutes reading
It
up
just
on this.
opens the mind, eh?
Opens the mind up, and I give each thing the time that I feel it deserves.
So getting back to that analytical mind, this is actually
Mm.
very interesting. How does an analytical mind decompress?
Doing
Changing light bulbs, fixing taps.
doing very, very focused things that don't require a lot of I guess mental agility. So like changing a light bulb is a very basic thing. Or I say it's a very basic thing, but some people will probably disagree with me.
We can edit it out if you need to.
No, but like changing a light bulb is a very basic thing. But if you wanted uh, to say, retile your bathroom, that's not such a basic thing. That requires a lot more thought. So it's thinking of things that take very little effort to do, and might either focus your mind on one very specific task. So it could be, doing the laundry, like just something very basic, something you can do almost on autopilot.
Sort of muscle memory, do this, do this, do that.
Exactly. Or I guess some people would think of, just watching something mindless on Netflix or something like that, like just a very lighthearted
Bit of
type
humor.
of TV show. Yeah, some humor, something that doesn't require you to follow, episode 1 through to 5 or whatever. Something that's just standalone episodes. Something like that can help you decompress. Spending time with kids, I find, is a really good one. Once they start talking, and when you're talking to a young child, it's amazing the sort of things and the sort of ways that they think of things. In a way, it's simple, but in a way, it also it shows an amazing complexity that I didn't realize. Obviously, because you can't remember when you're that young, but you don't realize how complex some of the things that 4-year-olds think of.
For example,
I just really impressed by how quickly they pick up on social norms, on things that are happening in around them.
interesting.
Much more than you'd really think, and they ask really pointed questions about why do people do that, and it really forces you to think about, okay, that doesn't really make sense, but I don't really know how to explain it, so I'm going to have to think about it first and then come back and explain it
You've
to you.
got me thinking. What is one question your eldest son has asked you that really has got you thinking? I get that
So
too.
yeah, I mean, a semi-controversial one, I guess,
Okay.
given the environment that we're in, because it's very recent and fresh in my mind, is we went to get the flu shot the other day. So I took the kids, and I got one just so to show them that it's okay. Daddy got one. You guys can get one. It's not going to be that painful. But the doctor's surgery has locked the front door, and they have to call someone, and then they come with a mask and they open the door for you, ask you to put on a mask, and then you go in and you do your consultation, and then you get the shot. So the nurse came to the door in a mask. She handed me a mask and she asked if the kids had masks. I said no, and they said, "Oh, we only have adult masks, so I guess it's okay. They can come in." So went in, and the doctor wasn't in. He was at home isolating because of COVID. So he dialed in for the consult, and the nurse was there, sort of doing the
So you
intermediate.
went to the doctor's clinic, but the
Yeah.
doctor wasn't there.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, telehealth.
But then you went into the clinic.
I know. It's interesting. He'd only found out on that day, so
Okay.
it was kind of
Interesting.
like couldn't really do anything about changing the appointment. And so because the doctor couldn't hear the nurse clearly or couldn't hear me clearly on the phone, he asked if we could take the mask down. We took our mask down, and then we started talking to the doctor and all of that, and everything went well with the consult. Finished that, and then nurse put the mask back up, and administered the shots and all of that. And when we left, my 4-year-old was like, "Daddy, why do people put their masks up and down all the time? What does it do? Does it stop COVID?" I was like, I don't really know how to answer all of those questions in the one thing. It's like, and why don't I have a mask? And it's like, oh, do you want one? He said, no, I don't want a mask, but I'm asking, why don't I have one? Can't I get COVID? I said, so all those sort of things that they understand.
They can see it.
They can see it. And, COVID's only, a couple of years in, and, it's a 4-year-old asking this because he's experienced COVID. That's half his life so far.
What's interesting is that you probably could have explained it, but how do you then explain it to a 4-year-old that makes sense to him?
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about explaining,
like I get it. I know why. You know why. I know why.
Yeah.
But how do you then translate that understanding to a 4-year-old so he gets it?
Yeah.
Can you?
I tried. I went down the path of saying, the doctor couldn't hear us on the phone, so we had to take the mask down. And sometimes, when that happens, it makes it easier for everyone to hear you, and they're doing it as a precaution. Had to explain what precaution meant as well. We realized, but it was an interesting conversation. And at the end of it, he basically just said, okay, and moved on. And he's like, well, where's my lollipop? I was very good after the shot. So yeah, but every once in a while, it's like the conversations get quite deep, and then immediately they, back onto something that you'd expect a 4-year-old to.
What's interesting is that you brought some of my experiences to the front of here, this conversation. I'm realizing that I'm going to my son more and more. That's a good point.
Yeah.
So when I say something, he comes back with a response. I think about it. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point.
Yes. Yeah, kids are very perceptive, and I think a lot of the ways we live our lives and a lot of the things that we do have complicated, our interactions. And kids just bring that fresh perspective.
They do. They make you go back to the roots, the fundamentals.
Yeah.
This morning when I had another podcast, the guest also said to me, he makes a conscious decision that when it comes to his phone, it's charged outside of the main bedroom. Because as we know, one email, one Slack message, one quick glance of the trading app, one notification is all it takes, and you could be captured in that hole, so to speak. Yeah. And like what you said, kids are very perspective, right?
Yeah.
That they will see it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I try and make it a point that around the kids when they're back, I try not to be on the phone as much. And I have to think about it consciously, because if I let my subconscious take over, like you said, it's that one glance, and all of a sudden you've been looking at your phone for 3 whole minutes, for 5 minutes.
Yeah,
And
and you get caught up with some article.
yeah,
Someone asks you
yeah,
this question, you think about it, and then all of a sudden it's half an hour.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I don't want the image my kids have of me is to be looking up at me, and I've got my eyes on my phone. So it's it is a conscious effort, and that's probably something that we need to deal with as a society. Maybe not just yet, I think, but I think it's coming soon, in terms of the balance of all this digital stimulation that we have versus real life interactions.
So my wife, she goes to me, you must finish every single day at 6:15 max,
As in work.
as in work. Whatever you do,
Yeah.
you have to finish. If you need to do gym, whatever, during the day is yours. When 6:15 comes around, off.
Yeah.
And it's good to have that reminder. And there are times when I would literally have the phone and I'll just throw it somewhere, not know where it is, then I can't get it. Obviously, the catch,
Yeah.
of course, is that I might forget where it is. So then my wife would have to call it, 2-3 hours
Yeah.
later when the kids come home, whatever. And then, okay, we'll plug it into the charger, we'll do what we need to do. So it's very much a conscious decision to turn off, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to make that conscious decision. It really depends on how or what works best for you. Like you said, you've got your wife to remind you every time and keep you accountable for that.
She
And
does.
yeah, and I think you kind of have to have some sort of accountability in place, whether it's something you impose yourself. And oddly enough, even setting an alarm on your phone. I know it's we're talking about spending less time on your phone, but setting an alarm, just no more, or putting your apps to sleep. All these are options that
Getting an old school manual clock.
getting one as well. I mean, I'm still uh, wearing an old watch, but yeah, these are just reminders that we need to give ourselves, because the phones and the technology that we have around us is very, very convenient, and it allows us to just explore deeper anything. Like I said, I'm a curious analytical person.
You can
Like,
go anywhere.
I can go anywhere. Like, someone sends me something that sounds interesting, I can immediately start digging deeper straight away, and within 5-10 minutes I've gone down a rabbit hole of
But then you're a
different
master at
information.
subject X.
Yeah, exactly. Temporarily, at least, and then yeah, you move on to the next thing, and it's addictive to have all that sort of knowledge available to you. But then again, I don't know how healthy it is for us to constantly have all of that at our
Stimuli.
fingertips. Yeah, exactly.
But I think if you remain disciplined, like my vice, my strength, my weakness, call it whatever you want, is that since the phone is so accessible, I can literally read all day long. Like, I love to read. That's all I ever do. So the fact it's on my phone, right? I could just read and just take it out of my pants, read. I can just read. I love reading. That's what I enjoy, right? But then there comes a point in time when it's too much
Yeah,
and I need to put it aside because the kids are home.
yeah,
My son wants to have a chat. My son wants to play. So getting back to that convenience factor, it's quite interfering, isn't it?
it
Sometimes now,
is.
isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And one of the things I do, maybe you mentioned reading a lot. I like reading a lot, but I choose to read books more often than listening to an ebook, for example. I like the inconvenience of picking up a physical book and deliberately avoiding a screen and just reading a book. What page number am I on? Having
Put a bookmark on it.
bookmarker, and I've got
What's a bookmark? People ask me.
yeah, a bookmark that my kids made for me. So
do you mean bookmarking in the sense of the website where you click it? No. I mean a physical
bookmark. So I think things like that allow you to indulge an interest that you have, but away from a piece of technology, because technology has been the companies have been very good at designing things that can take over or be a substitute for something else. So your phone becomes your central hub for everything. So you can literally put your whole life on your device. I think that's part of the danger, is that when you become dependent on it, people are still printing books. People are still
what's a book, sorry?
People are still printing newspapers, all those things. Not that I'm saying go subscribe to a newspaper, but like just think of ways that you can limit or regulate the use of your devices.
Interesting. We've gone everywhere, haven't we, in this conversation?
Of different places, yeah.
We have. I'm conscious of your time too, Clive.
Yeah.
Now, if we let's park everything. Let's park the current situation. I think what resonated the most with me is the whole identity piece, right?
Yeah.
We're still young chaps. We've got young families. What does your identity look like in 30 years' time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a very good question, because I've been thinking about that as well. And there's an old saying about a leopard doesn't change its spots, and so on. I completely disagree with that. I definitely think people have the capacity to change, to shift, both voluntarily and involuntarily. So I've seen it in myself. When I think back to when I was a teenager, very different to when I was, in my early 20s, and then, and now in my late 30s. It's like a very different mindset. In a way, some of it is convergence towards a point, and some of it is, new things that have been added to
the repertoire,
to the way I identify myself. So I think we all have a capacity to change, both, some the things that we, believe in fundamentally, the people we are, the ways we identify ourselves. All these things that I think, if you have a willingness to, you can change it.
But you need the willingness, but
you need the willingness.
That's probably the hardest thing.
You need the willingness. I mean, sometimes things happen to you that you can't avoid. I guess like COVID. COVID happened to everyone. Everyone was forced to do something different. There's very, very few people in this world whose lives were not impacted at all by COVID. So something like that can have a profound effect on people. Say 10 years from now, people might still have something that clicked or changed because of having gone through these, COVID lockdowns or gone through COVID, these things that can impact your life. So I definitely think I've got a few more things that I can't really say some of them, because I'm yet to experiences that will change my mind about certain things. So I think 30 years from now, it'll probably be a slightly different person, more experience in a lot of different things, with different perspective on different things. So I definitely think, this is not, so if you spoke to me in 30 years time, we did this podcast 30 years from now, you'll still be
I'm going to write that down, by the way.
Yeah, we'll be doing it in the metaverse probably, but yeah, it'll be a different person.
Because, like you said, a leopard can change its spots.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic way to sort of end this conversation. Clive, thank
Yeah.
you very much for your time.
No, thank you, Jeff. It's been very interesting.